Glad to be here. Um, Today I'm going to talk a little bit about what BASF is doing to enhance their operator training program utilizing digitalization. So first I want to talk just a little bit about BASF, give you a little bit of background. So again, I'm from Geismar, Louisiana. We have approximately 1,300 employees with about 1,000 contractors. We have 2,300 acres at our site in Geismar. About 30% of that is utilized, and we have 32 production units. Okay, so with that, BASF produces over 600 different chemicals. We're in several different segments. You can see them there, from agricultural, nutrition, surface technologies. So we're all over the different segments. So a few products that our chemicals go into, you can see them all here. Probably you used some of these this morning. A lot of personal care, soaps and lotions and things like that. So a lot of BASF chemicals are out there that a lot of people don't quite know. Also, the sports arena. BASF plays a big part in the sports arena. From the footwear to the helmets to the turf that everyone walks on, plays on, BASF Chemicals plays a big part in all of these. So a little bit about that, about BASF. So let's get into talking a little bit about our digitalization for our operator, reducing our unplanned events, increase operator discipline. So BASF has an initiative to reduce unplanned events, increase operational discipline using new tools. So when I talk through this presentation, BASF has lots of tools to train on. So when I talk digitalization, it doesn't mean that we're going away from traditional training. It's that we are kind of bolting on digitalization to some of the traditional training. So this is what we're looking at for the future and how we can move into the newer generation. So one of the things that we're looking at that we have implemented is our enhanced reality simulators. So our enhanced reality simulator is how we're achieving the goals that we're looking for moving into the future. So how do we achieve this? So with that enhanced simulation, we needed to key in on the human component. So how do we key in on the human component? So if we look at some of our root cause failure analysis, we can pull out those human components. So we can zero in whether it's equipment reliability, if it's startup shutdowns. We can see that human component and how it plays into failures, okay? And how we can bring in digitalization into our training to help that. So we want our operators to have the best tools available so they can be as successful in their job as possible. The big point of this also is we're trying to reduce that downtime incidents and maximize profitability, because in the times we're in now, with supply chain issues and needing to keep the plants running, what is the best way to train our personnel to reach that goal? All right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our historic approach. So our historic approach was a self-directed, utilizing our SMEs, utilizing trainers, but it relied heavily on having operators read and comprehend numerous operating procedures. So as we know from our learning pyramid that when we read something, we retain about 10% of that. So, but if we can actually do the task, simulate the task, we retain about 90% of that. So this is some of the data that, is out there and we proved during our pilot. So early 2017 is when we began researching different ways to enhance our current operator training process. and developing ideas for digital interactive procedures. So we went to conferences, we reached out to companies, we brought different companies in, we talked to them. So what we did when we brought Vuvio in, they were the closest ones that was what we were looking for, because what they did was take our plant, our process, our equipment, and build simulations with it. So with that, so the new workforce is coming in, and I've heard several presentations talking about the new workforce, the Generation Zs, born after 1995. So, the whole manufacturing community is seeing this. So what we had to do was we had to step up. We had to step our training up to be able to meet this new generation that's coming in, because they grew up, they got a phone in this hand, they got an iPad in this hand, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube. So we needed something digital so that they could interact and learn, because that's the way the new generation is learning. So when you go out and you buy something, and I've heard this a couple of times during the conference, when you go out and buy something, you never read the manual. Manual's confusing, leaves a lot of interpretation. What do? You Google it. You go to YouTube. All right, I do it all the time, because it's very specific to what I want to see and do. So again, this is the same principle that we're trying to transition to in the manufacturing community. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about some of the challenges. These aren't new challenges for the manufacturing community. I mean, these are always top priorities. EHS. I mean, what EHS enhancements do we see with bringing in digitalization? How can digitalization tie in with EHS? Equipment reliability. It's very important that our equipment runs. So how do we train our employees to where they're starting up equipment safely, shutting it down safely, so they're not damaging the equipment, and they're not in harm's way. Process safety compliance. This is big. Process safety. How do we ensure that with our training that we are ensuring that operators have the competency? And if they don't have the competency, how are we doing training remediation? So how do we remediate when they're not meeting the competency level that we need? And that's not only on refresher training, but it's also on initial training. New hire onboarding. So how can we lift our new hire onboarding with digitalization? Improve organizational transfer knowledge. This is big. This is something that a lot of companies struggle with every older employee that's leaving the workplace. How do we capture that knowledge from a 30-year, 40-year employee? How do we capture that knowledge and pass it on to the younger generation? Because somebody that's been there 30 or 40 years, something that's routine for them is not routine for a new employee coming in. So we want to use the digitalization software to capture that knowledge. And then last, standardizing across sites, shifts, whatever. We have to standardize that, because you go in on one shift, say, okay, well, this is the way we're going to start up. You go in on the next shift, this is the way there's no standardization. Even though you have a procedure, everybody interprets that written procedure different. So we want to standardize using that digitalization piece. Okay, so a little on the proof of concept in our pilot. So how do we validate that the simulation, the digitalization simulation training is actually going to work? So how do we know it's viable for BASF? So BASF is big on showing the proof of concept. Is this going to actually work? Because we're not going to just jump into something that's not going to help us. It's not going to work. So we wanted to see results that would improve consistency among operators, practices contributing downtime, inefficiencies, startups, shutdowns. So how did we do that? So we did that by conducting a side-by-side comparison. So we did a traditional training plan, and then we did our new digital simulation plan. So it was amazing the results that came out of that. Again, a lot of data was collected during this. So just a few things that we saw. So time to competency, 65% faster. All right, so that means an operator was able to use the digital simulator and feel confident and was able to go onto shift, take that job sooner than the traditional way of training. All right, we also saw a reduction in our subject matter experts and trainers by 73%. They did not have to spend every shift, every hour, every day with that operator. They have the digital simulator so they can actually go through and practice 24/7. Now again, you have to remember that during training, an operator is not going to be able to put his hands on every single thing. They're not going to be able to shut down, start up. Years ago when I was training, 25 years ago, we just go out there and start shutting things down, let you start up, whatever you want to do. Today, it's not like that. So an operator is not able to put his hands on every single thing. So he's not as confident. So by using these simulations, it builds that confidence faster. Even though he hasn't physically did it, he has simulated it. So he understands the valving, what's going to happen. So a lot of data, but it was a great pilot. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we built and how we use them before we get into the demo. Hopefully my demo runs. So these are some of the modules that we built, and we'll break them down. So digital replica. So this is an actual replica of our plant to where an operator can walk around, operate, and now we've actually, the engineers use it, the supervisor uses it, we use it in onboarding, but you can walk around in a controlled environment, look at all the different pieces of equipment, walk through the whole plant, look at components. It tells you exactly what it is, where it's at. The digital procedure simulator. So in the digital procedure simulators, we have different modules. So we have a guided, we have a learn by doing, refresh, test, and the field execution module. So the first two, the guided and the learn by doing, that's more for new operators that are training. Okay, so it walks them through procedures, tells them where the valves are, it lets them interact with the equipment, start, stop pumps, open, close valves. The learn by doing is once they're more confident, understand where the equipment is, where the components are, they can maneuver around and go through the procedure and do it on their own. The guided will actually walk them in the simulation. The refresh is some of our older operators, they love the refresh. They'll take the refresh before they go to start something. They can run through it real quick, refresh their memory where the valves are, what's going to happen, and of course the test. The test is, I've been doing a lot with the test. This is now part of our qualification process, to where we actually test and look at the competencies, and they have to make a minimum test score on the simulation, on that procedure. The field execution modules, this is one that goes along with our handhelds. So we're able to take handhelds out into the field, use the field execution. So now you're taking the simulation, which is into the field. So now we can go through the procedure and then save that report as a record. It says, it'll give you the time, the person, the date. So great tool. Enhanced process views we developed. So this is basically a digital interactive process module to where we can take complicated manifolds, load racks, anything that's complicated that someone doesn't get to operate and change flows, lineups. We can utilize this to where we can put it into an X-ray mode. We can look at the flows through the pipes. We can put the valve labeling, change flows. So it gives an operator the opportunity to be able to play with these complicated manifolds prior to actually going out there and doing it. So mislineups and things like that, we've cut out a lot of that by using these enhanced process views. A little bit on the training DCS simulation piece. We have done a few. They're not dynamic, but it gives a board operator the option to be able to go in emergency situations, and you can still play with all the controls. Again, it's not dynamic, but it gives the operator the chance to play with some of the controls in an emergency situation. All right? So we'll go to a demo. Let's see. Do I got to do anything, or does it just play? I got to hit play. Oh. Okay, there it goes. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to look at a little demo here, and we'll run through it. I'm going to talk quick as we walk through it. Okay, so this is the digital replica. This is JPEG pictures that have been stitched together that allows you to smoothly just walk through your process. So as you walk through your process, you can look at the different pieces of equipment. You can look up, you can look down, you can do a 360 look around. Also, once we get into right here, you can see the green boxes. So the green boxes, when you hover over it, it tells you exactly what it is. So then when you click on it, it'll give you a blowed up view, and then you can kind of interact with the valve. So this is where Vuvio is unique. You can actually interact with your equipment through the simulation. And again, a lot of the newer operators, I mean, this is what they're looking for. This is what they want. And then we also catalog all of our components. So if you want to see a specific component, you can search for it. You can put a generalized verbiage up there. You find it, click on it. It takes you straight to that component. So great piece there. So this is some of the enhanced views that I was talking about. So you can see the flows through the pipes. You can start the different flows. This is a more complicated manifold here. So you can see how the valves are activated. You can put labels on them. And then you can practice doing lineups. So if we're trying to get one product to one tank or whatever, we can play with these in the simulation. All right, so let's go into, so this is the procedure simulator. So if you look, that's the replica on the right. We have a map that's on the bottom. We have our procedure on the left. And then at the top, you can see there's an action checklist. So this action checklist is what we're actually going to go through. So in a procedure, you may have one step in a procedure, but it may have 5 to 10 actions. So we pull those actions out of that procedure, and we put them in that action checklist. So it may say, we're going to close all bleeds on the pump. Okay, well, we're going to pull those out. We're going to say we're going to close bleed 1, bleed 2, bleed 3, and so on. But you'll notice as we go through these, you're actually going through the procedure, you're performing the action, then you'll have a knowledge snippet. Again, organizational knowledge transfer right here. So if there's something important that needs to go in here, we've done videos, we've done text, a great option to pull some of that knowledge from operators that know something about this piece of equipment. And you'll notice, since this is the guided, it's automatically going to walk that operator to the next component that we're going to have to operate. So again, teaching the operator where these components are. This is the test simulator. Again, it looks similar, except that operator has to walk around, has to know where the components are, has to know what he's doing, and you can see you get an instant feedback here.
So it said, okay, I closed the correct valve. All right, so he has to find the next step. And this one will show you if we could complete it incorrectly. So we'll close or open the wrong valve, and instantly he knows, okay, I made a mistake. I opened this valve, I should have opened this valve. And you'll see at the bottom, you can go back, you can review, or you can try again. The review will take you back to the guided and let you review, and then take you. So this is the test report. So this is what it looks like. So again, this is a record. So each one of my operators has one of these, has a record with this on all their testing. So this is an assignment report. This is where I go in. I can make assignments to all the operators. I assign it to them, sends them an email. They go in. They take whatever assignment I've assigned. And then this is the analytics report. So you can really zero down on what your operators are doing. All right, so here you can see we got 13 operators that's made 100%. 13 operators, 100%. You can see the average score in there, 92. Then you can see there's 7 that scored 87 and 3 that didn't pass, okay? So now you can zero in, okay, why are these 3 operators having problems? So let's go one step further. So let's look at the procedure, all right? So it looks like those 3 are having problems with step 4. All right, so what's wrong with step 4? Is it the operator? Just don't understand it? Is it the wording? Is it confusing in the field? So these are things that you can really zero in on. So you can see. So there's 2 valves right side by side. They look identical. So they've been opened in the wrong one in the test. So again, remediation. So now I can go back. I can sit down with those 3 operators, and I can say, okay, well, let's look at step 4. You're having problems here, right? So again, a great tool, and again, remediation. This is how we're making sure that our operators are competent, okay? All right, and that was it. All right. Okay, now, let me finish up here. A couple slides left. So let's talk a little bit about why enhanced reality simulators. Well, I pretty much explained why. Time to proficiency, learn by doing, the instant feedback. And again, the influx of the new hires that's coming in with the new generation, they need the digitalization piece. And again, I want to say we're not getting away from the traditional. So we do the simulations, but again, we still have our traditional field test. So I try to convey that when I give these talks, because people are like, oh, well, you're doing simulations and you're taking the whole field piece away. No, we're not. This is a bolt-on to the field piece. So we still do walkthroughs. We still do testing in the field. So this is just another piece to bolt on for that competency piece and ensure that our operators are understanding our process, our procedures. Okay. Last slide. All right, so return on investment. So a lot of companies are big on return on investment. All right, so if we're going to invest this kind of money, where is our return? Okay, so these are just some of the pieces that we've pulled out, okay, that we've seen. Fewer unplanned events. Okay, so when we're out swapping pumps, and again, I go back to our root cause failure analysis. When we've had swapping pumps, we've damaged pumps, shut down the whole facility. So, our utilities and our wastewater, that's the front and back end, very critical. So this is where we have focused our first pilot. So improve planned events. Okay, so before we shut down one of our huge cogens, we're going to go through and refresh train. Everybody's going to go through their refreshers on shutting down that cogen. So what we've seen when we do this, we have taken time off as far as how long it takes to shut down. Same way with startups. When you start talking about steam and power generation on startups, if you can shorten that time by a day or two, you're talking $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a day in just steam and electricity production. So again, and data that I've collected shows this. Reduced dependency on subject matter experts for training. Again, I don't have to dedicate a trainer for these new operators. They do check-ins. So they're using the simulation, and we do check-ins. Fewer customer interruptions. Again, supply chain. And then, again, utilities. If our utilities plant goes down, our customers are the rest of the site. So that's why it was big for our utilities plant to implement this. And then the last piece, this was big during the pandemic. So they sent us all home, and only the operators were allowed at the plant. So first thing they asked me to do, okay, well, we got to make sure we can staff the plant if the operators are out with COVID. It's like, how can we do that? I said, no problem. I said, I'll put a training plan together. I'll assign everybody the simulations. They can walk through the plant. They can look at everything. So everybody trained at home. So if we had to pull staff and stick them in an operator's position, you know, with the training, the procedure training, the replicas, if OSHA was to come in and say, show me how you train them at home, not a problem. I got it right here. Here's their test. Here's their replicas. They could walk around. They could touch everything in that simulation. I said, I've tested them all. There it is. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope everyone got a little something out of that.